The Assyrian Tree of Life, tracing the origin of Jewish monotheism and Greek philosophy. Introduction. A stylized tree with obvious religious significance already occurred as an art motif in 4th millennium Mesopotamia, and by the 2nd millennium BC it is found everywhere within the orbit of the ancient Near Eastern cultures, including Egypt, Greece, and the Indus civilization. The meaning of the motif is not clear, but its overall composition strikingly recalls the tree of life of later Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and Buddhist art. The question of whether the concept of the tree of life actually existed in Mesopotamia has been debated. However, and those many scholars today prefer the more natural term sacred tree when referring to the Mesopotamian tree. About the middle of the 2nd millennium, a new development in the iconography of the tree becomes noticeable, leading to the emergence of the so-called late Assyrian tree under Tukulti Ninurta I. With the rise of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, this form of the tree spreads throughout the entire Near East and continues to be seen down to the end of the 1st millennium. Its importance for imperial ideology is borne out by its appearance on royal garments, jewelry, official seals, wall paintings, and sculptures of royal places, as in the throne room of Ashuranushirpal II in Cabala, where it is the central motif. The hundreds of available specimens of the late Assyrian tree exhibit a great deal of individual variation, reflecting the fact that the motif and most of its iconography were inherited from earlier periods. Nevertheless, its characteristic features stand out in the crudest examples and make it generally easy to distinguish it from the predecessors. Especially, it consists of a trunk with a palmate crown standing on the stone base and surrounded by a network of horizontal or intersecting lines fringed with palmettes, pine cones, and pomegranates. In more elaborate rendition, the trunk regularly has joints or nodes on its top, middle, and base, and a corresponding number of small circles to the right and left of the trunk. Usually there are a figure besides it, which poses. It's an animal or a supernatural figurine usually that flanks the tree, while a winged disc hovers over the whole. Even the most schematic representation executed with meticulous attention to overall symmetry and axial balance. What did this tree stand for, and why was it chosen as an imperial symbol? There is considerable literature on this question, but despite most painstaking analysis of the iconographic evidence on the whole, little has been explained. This is largely due to the almost total lack of relevant textual evidence. The symbolism of the tree is not discussed in cuneiform sources, and the few references of the sacred trees or plants in Mesopotamian literature have proved too vague and obscure to be productive. Two fundamentally important points have nevertheless been established concerning the function of the tree in the throne room in Ashurnasirpal's palace in Cabala. Firstly, Irene Winter has convincingly demonstrated that the famous relief showing the king flanking the tree under the winged disc corresponds to the epithet vice-regent of Assur. In the accompanying inscription, clearly the tree here represents the divine world order, maintained by the king as the representative of the god Assur, embodied in the winged disc hovering above the tree. Secondly, it was observed some time ago that in some relief the king takes the place of the tree between the winged genies. Whenever the practice implication of this fact, it is evident in such scenes the king is portrayed as the human personification of the tree. Thus, if the tree symbolizes divine world order, then the king himself represents the realization of that order in man. In other words, a true image of God, the perfect man. If this reasoning is correct, it follows that the tree had a dual function in Assyrian imperial art. Basically, it symbolizes divine world order maintained by the Assyrian king. But inversely, it could also be projected upon the king to portray himself as a perfect man. This interpretation accounts for the prominence of the tree as an imperial symbol, because it's not only provided as a legitimation for a serious rule over the world, but it also justifies the king's position as the absolute ruler of the empire. The complete lack of references to such an important symbol is contemporary written sources can only mean that the doctrines relating to the tree were never committed to writing by the scholarly elite who forged imperial ideology, but were circulated orally. The nature of the matter further implies that only the basic symbolism of the tree was common knowledge, while the more sophisticated details of its interpretation was only accessible to a few select initiates only. The existence of an extensive esoteric law in 1st and 2nd millennium Mesopotamia is amply documented, and a few extant written specimens of such law prove that mystical exegesis of religion symbolism played a prominent part in it. The Sephirotic tree. Mesopotamia esoteric law has a remarkable parallel in Jewish Cabala, and more importantly, from the standpoint of the present topic, so does the Assyrian tree. A schematic design known as the Sephirotic tree of life figures prominently in both practical and theoretical Cabala. In fact, it can be said that the entire doctrinal structure of the Cabala revolves around this diagram, a form which strikingly resembles the Assyrian tree. The Sephirotic tree derives its name from elements called Sephiroth, literally countings or numbers, represents in the diagram by cycled, numbered from 1 to 10. They are defined as divine powers or attributes, throughout which the transcendent God, not shown in the diagram, manifests himself. Each has a name associated with its number. The tree has a central trunk and a horizontal branches spreading to the right and left, on which the Sephiroth are arranged in symmetrical fashion. 3 to the left, 4 on the trunk, and 3 to the right. The vertical alignment of the Sephiroth on the right and left represents the polar opposites of masculine and feminine, positive and negative, active and passive, dark and light, etc. The balance of the tree is maintained by the trunk, also called the pillars of equilibrium. Like the Syrian tree, the Sephiroth tree has dual function. On the one hand, it's a picture of a macrocosm. It gives an account of the creation of the world, accompanied in the three successive stages of the Sephiroth emerging from the transcendent God. It also charts the cosmic harmony of the universe upheld by the Sephiroth under the straining influence of the polar system of opposites. In short, it is a model of the divine world order, and in manifesting the invisible God through his attributes, it is also, in a way, an image of God. On the other hand, the Sephirothic tree, like the Assyrian, can also refer to man as a microcosm, the ideal man created in the image of God. Interpreted in his way, it becomes a way of salvation for the mystic seeking deliverance from the bonds of flesh through the soul's union with God. The arrangement of the Sephiroth from the bottom to the top of the diagram marks the path which he has to follow in order to attain the ultimate goal, the crown of heaven, represented by the Sephria number 1, Keter. Tradition has it that the doctrines about the tree were originally revealed to the patriarch Abraham, who transmitted them orally to his son. In actual fact, the earliest surviving Kabbalistic manuscript dates from the 10th century AD. It is generally agreed, however, that the foundation stone of Kabbalism, the Sefer Yetzirah, was composed sometime between the 3rd and 6th centuries, and the emergence of Cabala as a doctrine structure can now be reliable traced to the 1st century AD. The renowned rabbinical schools of Babylonia were the major centers from which the Kabbalistic doctrine spread to Europe during the Middle Ages. Although the Sephirothic tree displays a remarkable similarity to the Assyrian tree in both its symbolic content and external appearance, in addition, given the fact that it seems to have originated on Babylonian soil, the likelihood that it is based on Mesopotamian model appearance consistable. As a matter of fact, a number of central Kabbalistic doctrines, such as the location of the throne of God in the Middle Haven, are explicitly attested in Mesopotamian esoteric texts. The crucial question, however, is how the existence of the hypothetical Mesopotamian model can be proven. Given the lack of directly relevant textual evidence, it must be admitted that a priori it is possible that the observed similarities are simply coincidental and due to a common cultural heritage rather than to a direct borrowing. The Syrian tree diagram. For those above reasons, I have for years considered the identity of the Assyrian and Sephirothic trees an attractive but probably unprovable hypothesis, until it finally occurred to me that there is a way of proving or rejecting it. For it, if the Sephirothic tree really is but an adaptation of a Mesopotamian model, the adaptation process should be reversible. That is, it should be possible to reconstruct the original model without difficulty. The basic elements of the tree, the Sephiroth, are crucial in this respect. Their names and definitions strongly recall the attributes and symbols of Mesopotamian gods, and their prominent association with numbers calls to mind the mystic number of the Mesopotamian gods. They are in fact represented as angelic beings in some Sephirotic schemes, which in consistent with their definitions as divine powers. Accordingly, in the hypothetical Mesopotamian model, they would have been gods with functions and attributes coinciding with those of the Sephiriots. Consequently, I replaced the Sephiot with Mesopotamian gods sharing their function and or attributes. Most gods fell into the place immediately, and